You still believe goodness makes you valuable. It doesn't. It makes you useful, and useful things get used up. You weren't born good. You were trained. From childhood, every act of compliance was rewarded. Every time you shared, stayed quiet, fell in line, your nervous system received the same signal. Being good keeps you safe. Safe from punishment. Safe from rejection. Safe from being left alone. But safety is not power. And you've been confusing the two ever since. The deception was elegant. They told you kindness would elevate you. That honesty earned respect. That patience was strength. None of it was true. What those qualities actually guarantee is predictability. And predictability is a handle that others can grab. You were handed a moral lens and told it was wisdom. Through it, selfishness looks shameful. Aggression looks primitive. Dominance reads as overcompensation. You were taught to recoil from the very behaviors that move hierarchies. So look at your life honestly. Who advances? The person who waits their turn, or the one who takes up space without apology? Who wins negotiations? The one preoccupied with fairness, or the one focused purely on outcome? Who sets the terms in relationships? The one afraid of disappointing, or the one comfortable being disliked? You already know the answer. You just weren't allowed to say it out loud. The leash you call virtue, goodness, as society defined it for you, is not a virtue. It's a behavioral leash, one that keeps you manageable inside systems designed by people who never intended to be managed themselves. You've been mistaking moral cleanliness for superiority. But powerless moral cleanliness is just decoration. It lets you feel noble while others make the decisions that actually matter. Machiavelli understood the colder truth. Humans organize into hierarchies, and hierarchies don't reward obedience. They reward control. They don't reward hesitation. They reward decisive action. When two people want the same thing, the one willing to apply pressure wins. You were trained to hesitate, to be patient, to be the bigger person, to take the high road.
What that actually means, absorb the cost so someone else doesn't have to.
And because your goodness is consistent and visible, you become legible. When someone crosses a line, you forgive. When someone disrespects you, you construct generous explanations for their behavior. When someone runs a strategy on you, you look for their childhood wound instead of recognizing the move. You call this empathy. A strategist calls it an open door. The uncomfortable truth is that goodness isn't neutral. It broadcasts your operating system. If you always choose fairness over advantage, others will simply choose the advantage and leave you the fairness. If you always choose harmony over leverage, others will use your need for harmony as the leverage. Look at any competitive environment. The good man is liked, occasionally admired, almost never in control. You were raised to believe being feared was a character flaw. But fear is just the awareness of consequences. And when crossing, you has no consequence. You aren't being respected. You're being grazed. The real cost of goodness isn't moral compromise. It's strategic nakedness. You walk into competitive spaces without claws. You negotiate without weight. You give without conditions. You work without keeping score. And when you're overlooked, undercut, or quietly replaced, you reach for the same story. At least I did the right thing. It comforts you. It changes nothing. How you get harvested. The world doesn't attack your goodness, it simply harvests it. You picture exploitation as something dramatic, a visible betrayal, a clear villain. It almost never works that way. It's gradual, a request here, a small overstep there, a joke at your expense, a deadline that somehow always lands on your desk. Each moment quietly tests your elasticity. And because you've tied your identity to being the understanding one, you stretch further than you should. Every time. There are 3 types of people who instinctively exploit the virtuous, not out of hatred, out of structural opportunity. The manipulative superior. They sit above you. They don't need to be aggressive. They calibrate. They observe who pushes back and who absorbs. The ones who push back receive measured friction. The ones who absorb receive more weight. They frame overwork as trust, unfair demands as investment in your future, your silence as maturity. And if you question any of it, they gently question your attitude. And you back down because you don't want to be the difficult one. They register this immediately. The ceiling lowers, the load increases, the recognition doesn't come. You tell yourself you're building something, you're being built upon, the opportunistic peer. They're lateral, colleague, friend, competitor. Warm, social, easy to be around. But they track status the way a hunter tracks movement. When an opening appears, they move without hesitation. They speak first. They take the credit. They shape the story. You hesitate because you don't want to be the kind of person who steps on others. They don't share that constraint. They map your reluctance to compete. They notice you prioritize group comfort over individual positioning. So they position themselves using your restraint as cover. They reframe your ideas as theirs. They land the joke that lands at your expense, and you laugh because it's easier than confronting it. Every concession quietly resets the hierarchy. The emotionally strategic partner. This one operates closest. No physical dominance needed. Emotional leverage is more precise. They test early. Small disrespects, a delayed response, a comparison slipped in casually. They watch how you react. If you respond calmly and directly, they recalibrate. If you over-explain, rush to soothe, or reach for reassurance, they've learned something more valuable. Your fears. Fear of losing them. Fear of being the problem. Fear of conflict itself. From that point, they adjust the controls. Approval gets withheld strategically. Emotional intensity gets turned up when they need you destabilized. Your limits get reframed as emotional immaturity. And because you're good, you search for the compromise. You decide that love means patience. But patience without standards doesn't make you loving. It makes you available. The 3 exploitable traits. The mechanism underneath all of this is simple. Predictability creates control. And the good man signals 3 things that function like open doors. Guilt sensitivity. You were conditioned to feel responsible for other people's discomfort. Someone seems disappointed. You scan for what you did wrong. Someone pulls away. You chase the explanation. Someone accuses you. You start defending before you've even assessed whether the accusation is valid. This doesn't require aggression to exploit. A superior only needs to imply disappointment. A partner only needs to express sadness. A peer only needs to question your loyalty. You respond from guilt rather than judgment. And that response is the leverage. Excess empathy. Empathy, properly calibrated, is a tool. Empathy on by default, regardless of context, is a vulnerability. You understand people too readily. You find explanations for bad behavior. You excuse disrespect because you can see the stress behind it, the history behind it, the humanity behind it. But when someone crosses a line and you pause to interpret rather than respond, something is decided in that pause. The person who hesitates to enforce a boundary teaches everyone around them that the boundary is negotiable. Moral consistency. You take pride in being principled. You don't manipulate. You don't retaliate disproportionately. You follow your own rules, even when others don't follow theirs. The problem is that visible, consistent rules make you readable. If someone knows you'll always choose fairness, they'll take the asymmetry and let you have the fairness. If they know you won't escalate, they can push without real risk. Your predictability doesn't just build trust, it eliminates threat. And without threat, there's no cost to crossing you. In any dominance hierarchy, the most dangerous person isn't the loudest. It's the one who is least predictable within controlled limits. Unpredictability carries risk. The good man systematically removes risk from the equation, telegraphing his responses, forgiving ahead of schedule, offering second chances before consequences have even arrived. This is why people push, rarely out of malice, instinctively. They probe for resistance. When they find none, they expand into the space. You've seen this pattern in every area of your life. The job where your reliability became a reason not to promote you. The relationship where your steadiness became an excuse to stop trying. The group where your tendency to smooth things over became a reason to place you at the bottom of the frame. Exploitation is almost never an event. It's a slow drift, and by the time you notice, you've already absorbed years of it. Controlled ruthlessness. You don't need anger. You don't need cruelty. You need what might be called controlled ruthlessness. And it's not what it sounds like. Emotional ruthlessness is reactive, loud, sloppy, driven by wounded ego. It burns alliances and signals fragility. Controlled ruthlessness is surgical, quiet, calibrated. It's the ability to apply consequences without drama, to reduce access without explanation, to hold a position without requiring the other person's understanding or approval. Most men who figure out they've been losing ground swing immediately to the wrong extreme. They become aggressive, theatrical, erratic. That's not power. That's instability wearing power's clothes. Real power is calibrated pressure. Selective, precise. Applied only when necessary, and then without apology. The shift starts with one principle. Stop rewarding what costs you position. Every interaction either builds your authority or erodes it. The question isn't, am I being kind? The question is, what behavior am I reinforcing? If someone interrupts you repeatedly and you let it pass repeatedly, you've trained them to override you. The correction isn't confrontation, it's calm, direct re-engagement. Eye contact, reclaiming the frame without making it a scene. If a joke keeps placing you as the low-status target and you keep laughing, you're casting your own vote. The correction isn't hostility, it's selective non-participation, or a quieter, sharper response that resets the dynamic without escalating it. If emotional volatility keeps getting rewarded with your reassurance, volatility increases. The correction isn't withdrawal, it's reduced availability when the pattern repeats, not announced, just implemented. This is controlled ruthlessness, not punishment, calibration, not coldness, conditionality. The deeper shift. You need to detach your identity from being liked. Being liked is weather. It changes. Respect is structural. It has to be built into the foundation, and it requires that some things remain genuinely uncertain. When people know you'll always come back, they stop worrying about losing you. When they know you'll always explain yourself, they stop needing to earn understanding. When they know you'll never actually walk away, they stop treating your presence as something worth maintaining. Ambiguity is expensive for the people around you. The moment someone genuinely isn't sure whether you'll pull back your time, your attention, your cooperation, something shifts. Not because you've threatened them, because you've stopped removing all the risk for them. The good man over-explains because he needs to be understood. The person with actual leverage speaks once, clearly, and then watches what happens next. Words are not leverage. Consequences are. And consequences don't need to be announced. They need to be real. This transition will feel wrong at first. Your old conditioning will call it cruelty. It will tell you that you're becoming someone you don't want to be. What you're actually becoming is conditional. Empathy that has to be earned. Generosity with a memory. Access that closes when consistently abused. You're not removing your values. You're giving them teeth. Because values without consequences aren't principles. They're just preferences, and preferences are very easy to ignore. The world doesn't punish decisive people. It takes advantage of accommodating ones. Your goal isn't to be feared. Your goal is to make crossing you genuinely costly. Once that's true, once people can feel that cost without you having to explain it or announce it or defend it, you stop needing to prove anything. And that's when the dynamic finally changes.